In China, you have Made in China. In the US, there's Buy American. And in Canada, yes, you guessed it, you have Made in Canada. These sound like super simple slogans, like support your own country, please. But underneath all of this, there's something much, much bigger. They're government rules that tell the state, when you spend public money on roads, defense, factories, you must buy domestic first. Which means that foreign companies, including European ones, usually come in second place. So the question now is super simple. Should us Europeans do the same? Is it time for a Buy European policy? And honestly, this discussion really is not new, because if there's one country that loves this idea, it's France. Paris has been shouting, Europe needs its own industry, since basically the invention of the EU. In 2012, Nicolas Sarkozy tried a Buy European Act. Big name, even bigger speech, and then everyone went home and forgot about it. And then in 2017, Emmanuel Macron rebooted the idea with a new buzzword, European sovereignty. Again, same message, new branding, and once again it went nowhere. But France never drops this stuff. And now they're back again. This time, the French Commissioner for the Internal Market, Stéphane Séjourné, is pushing yet another shiny new label, Made in Europe. His proposal is designed to speed up Europe's industrial independence, especially in clean tech. It would give explicit priority to European-made products in public contracts, specifically in defense, digital infrastructure, and heavy industry. You know, green steel and aluminium. The idea is simple. Made in Europe will set minimum levels of EU-made content for key products. For example, if we look at electric cars, early drafts of the proposal floated a rule where government subsidies and even consumer bonuses would only apply if 70% of the car is produced inside of the EU. In other words, 70% needs to be European, 30% can be non-European. Max. Otherwise, the public money stays in the bank. And according to a leaked draft, the goal of this proposal is very ambitious, because right now the EU makes up around 16% of global manufacturing. That puts Europe behind China, which, interestingly enough, is actually coming down. But we're ahead of the US, which really surprised me and kind of made my day. Take that, Mr. Trump. I mean, seriously, who wants your cars anyway? By 2030, as part of the industrial strategy, the EU wants manufacturing to make up at least 20% of global manufacturing. And it's also about jobs. Right now, around 30 million people in Europe work in manufacturing. But if you look very, very closely, that number is ever so slightly shrinking since 2022. And the whole point is to stop that slide, to actually make manufacturing jobs grow again. The Made in Europe proposal was co-signed by more than 1,000 business leaders and trade union reps from across all of the EU. So on paper, it looks like a pretty solid coalition. But not everyone is on board, including the car industry. And back in December, 9 EU member states urged extreme caution. Their message was that European preference is fine, but only as a very, very last resort. And their concern is pretty straightforward. European companies don't build things using only European parts. Their supply chains are global. Take this new French electric vehicle startup called Vercor. It's opening a brand new battery gigafactory near Dunkirk. Exactly the kind of project this policy is supposed to encourage. But more than half of their battery content still comes from Asia. And under that new 70% Made in Europe rule, that factory already fails the test. And as mentioned before, we simply cannot forget that Europe produces things under stricter rules: climate, the environment, and labor. And while that's obviously great, we really don't want our people working in sweatshops. It also makes production a lot more expensive. And critics raise 2 further red flags. First, more red tape. Companies would suddenly have to prove exactly how European their supply chains are, what percentage is made inside of the EU, and what still comes from abroad. And yeah, that simply means a lot more paperwork and compliance, and could be especially painful for startups that don't have a massive amount of staff. And second, trade deals. A hard Buy European push risks annoying trade partners the EU spent years negotiating free trade agreements with. And with all of this in mind, Germany came up with a completely different idea. Instead of Made in Europe, Germany's economic minister, Katharina Reiche, is pushing for something a little softer, Made with Europe. The idea is less about drawing hard lines and more about combining Europe's own strengths with cooperation with trusted global partners around the globe. So, with that in mind, what happens next with Made in Europe? EU leaders will take their positions at an informal summit this Thursday, with Council President Antonio Costa already signaling that some form of European preference is simply unavoidable. And then, later this month, the Commission is set to unveil legislation linking subsidies and public contracts to local content in strategic sectors. Though, I could imagine that 70% figure is very, very likely to change. So, this is what I think. In general, I really do believe that some form of Buy European is absolutely necessary. The world has changed, and pretending it hasn't is just naive. But for me, everything comes down to two massive questions. And the first one is, what actually counts as strategic? Because this really has to be tight and focused. We do not want an excuse to build another massive new Brussels bureaucracy that has to monitor how much of these supply chains from European firms are actually European and which ones aren't. Plus, we don't want our firms to spend half their time at doing admin work rather than focusing on their actual business. So, the scope has to be specific. Chips, defense, batteries, sure. But let's keep it this small. And the second question is even trickier. What really counts as Europe here? Yes, of course, the EU comes first. But what about our near neighbors? And what about all of our other EU candidates? And what about our global partners that clearly share our values? I made an entire video about this a week ago, about a tiered EU, where EU membership is split into 4 layers. And honestly, it makes so much sense to think about Made in Europe the same way across all 4 tiers. That means that countries in Tier 4, like Canada, South Korea, Japan, and Australia, close partners, democracies, and allies, could count towards our Made in Europe quota. I think that makes complete sense. And Honda has been saying something similar. They have been producing cars in the EU for more than 60 years, and they have argued that Made in Europe should really mean made with common values. And to be honest, the more I think about it, the more I think this is quite a good idea. We could even build this into our trade agreements. It could be like a bargaining chip with any future deals we make, that if they join us in this trade agreement, they could be part of our Made in Europe quota. And on the topic about buying European, we at EU Made Simple are super European. Johnny, get over here, man. Get over here. Let me make some space. Here we go.
Hello, guys.
Who the hell are you, man?
Well, guys, you might not know me, but I'm Jonathan. Basically, the German Lambertus. Right?
Yeah, the German Lambertus with your own channel, man. Like...
I'm running the German channel of EU Made Simple.
You need to work on your subscribers, man. Anyway. But we also have a Romanian channel.
Right, his name is Dodo, our channel manager in Romania.
Yeah.
And we have a French channel.
Paul, exactly.
Colleague Paul in Paris.
You might know him from our live streams. He's on there quite often.
So we're quite a big team right now. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, look at this picture here. We even met in Romania last week to make the whole strategy for EU Made Simple.
Yeah, that was a big catch-up. And that was possible thanks to your help, to be honest.
Yeah, seriously, guys, really thanks to your help. Because even this very office we're in right now in Munich is financed by your contributions.
And we even have a new coffee machine right now. Well,
I knew you were going to bring it up. I knew you were going to bring it up. No, but really what we'd like to say is thank you. Seriously, thank you. We're almost at our target of 1,400 euros sponsored by you, with which we can pay all of this. So our overheads like our office and all of the other additional software, etc. So if you want to support us, please do, so we can reach this target and make more content.
Thank you.
And also a big thank you to all of our presidents. Christian, Peter, Clement, Daniel, Dev, Eupedia, Giuseppe, HAVD, Jake, Kiloxen, Macier, Michael, Rashid, Chauki, Jan, Stefan, Unite Europe, Westervang, and Ava Europa. See you in the next video.